Okay, so Rich, we basically said that using the back of the camera, not the greatest for getting critical focus.
Nope.
We might often want to pipe the signal out to, say, an electronic viewfinder, an external monitor, or maybe use an attached loop. But oftentimes, we might not have those available to us,
Right.
and we still need to check focus on the back of the camera using the camera LCD. And there's a tried and true method for sort of setting focus before we actually start shooting.
Yeah, and what it's really called is take a picture. So you put your camera into autofocus mode if you're working with a lens that supports that, and then you could just hold down the plunger and let it sort of find the exposure. And as you see there, it locked. It went from red to green.
Right. Now, on your camera, that little box there represents the area that it's looking at
Yeah.
to try to focus. And we can move that around the screen.
Yeah, if I go ahead and move that, and let's say I set this on the bottle, I wanted the bottle in focus, and I just halfway hold down the plunger, it's going to rack through the settings, and then it locked in. And you'll notice in this case that the bottle's in focus while the bird is not as in focus.
Okay, that's great. That's if you're running sort of a running gun situation and you don't really trust what you're seeing, but don't trust your own eyes,
And
you
that
can
does,
do that.
that does have one other benefit, which is by taking the still, you're capturing a higher resolution image if you need it for print or web, and it's getting relevant metadata about the lens and the settings you use, because the video file doesn't have that.
Now, were you actually taking a still there, or were you just using the autofocus capabilities of your movie mode?
If I let it autofocus and then it finished, I can go ahead and push it, and it would then take the still
Got it.
and fire that off.
Cool.
And it would store it as a still image. And in this case, you actually saw there the blinkies came on.
Yep.
It gives you an idea of if you're under or properly exposed using some of those photographic features. So there are certain benefits to firing off a photo first if you've got the time.
Got it. Now, a method that I like in terms of getting focus is because, I'm, I don't know, how should I say, skeptical of autofocusing and any sort of machine helping me do something.
You like to be in control.
I like to be in control. Yes, I have a little bit of OCD. I'll admit that. One of the tried and true methods that I like, besides that one, is actually zooming into the image. Now, I don't mean zooming in by physically zooming like on a lens zoom.
Yeah.
I mean by using some of the focus features that I have on my camera to be able to enlarge the size of the shot in the viewfinder.
Well, you bring up a really good point there. The danger in adjusting the zoom lens, if you had it attached, is that the aperture could change. So that could completely change your focus and everything else. And so then when you go back out, all of a sudden what you set focus on isn't the same reality.
That's a good point. I'm talking more about getting the shot framed up, all my other technical settings right now. I'm adjusting focus. We can actually sort of crop in or sort of zoom in on the sensor level.
Yeah, remember that we're not using the whole sensor when we're shooting video.
Right.
So I can use the magnification button and zoom that in a bit. And it depends on the camera, but sometimes you'll have a 50% zoom or 100% or a one-to-one view where you're seeing each pixel, and it will give you that overlay. Then you can go ahead and move that bounding box around. Now, if your camera has a little thing that sometimes says L or lock, if you've got that turned on, you
might not be able to move that.
You're like, why is it moving? Look for that lock. But this allows you to sort of move around the image and find what you want to focus. And then if your camera is in manual mode, you can go ahead and adjust it. Some cameras will have a switch on the side of the body for focus. Others will have a switch on the lens. But, or maybe both. You might have to engage both switches to manual.
And this is a great technique, I find, especially for things like interviews, right? Because when we're doing an interview, we want the person's eyes to be nice and sharp and focus. That's what most people connect to when we're, looking at people. So oftentimes I'll zoom into somebody's nose or their eyes or something like that to get this sort of part of their face nice and sharp, and this is a great method to do that.
And then at this point, you can just hit the record button and the camera will automatically go back to normal view, or if you're not ready to roll yet, just tap the magnifying glass with the minus sign, and it will pull back out, and that lets you see the whole image. And so you just punched in there to check focus, and then punched back out to set the shot. I didn't actually touch the lens, I didn't adjust its framing, its composition, any other settings. I just tweaked the focus manually, and I think that really works great. Now, if you are using an external monitor, some monitors and some viewfinders will actually have a feature called Focus Assist that will show you edge detection, and you could turn that on at the monitor level, and as you adjust the focus, what's happening there is it will help you detect the edges and say, this edge is in focus or it's not.
There you go. So that's using a couple different methods to get sharp focus, right? Even if we're using the back of our camera, the camera LCD, we can still get pretty sharp focus. And the first method that we took a look at was using some of the autofocusing capabilities, simply pressing the shutter button down halfway, and inside of that box, we can get what's in focus there. We can also take a photo, which will sort of let us check focus, but it has the added benefit of capturing additional metadata. We can also zoom in on the sensor level, as you said, 50% zooms or 1-to-1 zooms, zoom all the way in, get focus, and then come back out to record. And then depending on other monitoring equipment that we have, say like a viewfinder or an external monitor, we can use additional features on those monitors to help us ensure sharp focus.
And I think the thing to realize here is that focus is critical. People can forgive a shot that's a little too dark.
Yep.
You can always boost saturation to fix it if the color's washed out. You could make the audio a little louder, but there is no filter to fix focus. You're like, oh, just sharpen the shot.
Not the same.
No,
Not the same.
it's like, hey, there's lots of noise in that out of focus image. So until those light show cameras kick in, and it's actually going to be possible to get those in video cameras, I hear that's what's coming next. Until we have a change in lens technology, you got to focus, you got to make sure you're in focus, and you got to check your focus anytime anything changes. You move the camera, check focus.
Absolutely.
Lighting condition changes, check focus. Before you roll any shot, not a bad idea to check focus.